Welcome to Cuttle's live stream. My name is Federico, and the goal today is to show you all the things you can do with the Weld and Score modifier, or to give you like a really solid understanding of it. The beauty of the Weld and Score is that you can get objects like these, where it's a single piece, like a single chunk, but then you get the score as a separate operation, and it kind of looks like this on the screen. So I wanted to kind of do a deep dive on it, and I'm going to try to include at the end how to do a couple of requests that people asked on the Facebook. So, for example, how to do these picture frame. I think we can do that really quickly with the Weld and Score. And then somebody had a question about how to accomplish the little scores on the letters, like in this template. So let's get started. I can delete this one. So I wanted to start like from the very basics of like what, how does it work? So the idea here is that, like, say if you have a circle, I was going to use two shapes as an example. If you have a circle and a star, if you were to send these to the laser cutter just as is, what would happen? Actually cut it just as is. What would happen is you would get something like that. Like you can see that how the cut gets made. Like everything gets cut, and then you end up with like three separate pieces. Like wherever the star intersected with the circle, you get the circle being cut, and then or you could think of it as the star being intersected by the circle. And so, like, the basic idea is that you would want to weld those to start with. So if you weld them, if you apply the Boolean union or weld, what you end up with is something more, as you can see it on the screen, it's just like a single shape. And what you end up with is something like this. So that's getting places, because now we get a single shape. But I think what we want to do is to get this kind of like feeling that we still have the star being present there. So we want to have like these lines. It's pretty crooked. So let me backtrack here a bit. So in order to do that, what we can do is apply that Weld and Score. So if we select it and go to modify, that Weld and Score is all the way here to the bottom. So I can apply that. And so the result I get is I still get a single piece, right? Like it's a single chunk that gets cut in one section, but I get the option to have this like score line. Oh, you know what? Actually, the example I had on the screen was this one. Let's see. Yeah, that one. So yeah, I get the star kind of being outlined, and I still get a single piece. So it's kind of like magically convenient. I suppose I could show you, like, what would it take to do it if you didn't have this Weld and Score? Yeah, let's do it. That sounds like a good exercise. So let me delete these. I'm just going to delete the Weld and Score and go back to the two shapes. So I think the idea is, okay, you could start by applying a weld so you can join the pieces, hence Weld and Score. So let's apply that Boolean union. And then I need a way to like figure out how to get that like sort of outline. So I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to set it aside here. Let's undo the Weld and Score on that one. So my first thought was like, could be an intersection. So if I intersect these two pieces, go to modify, and then there's the intersect. And then I could change the color to make it like a separate operation. But then I realized that the intersect doesn't quite do it, because I end up just with like, both the circle and the star being outlined. Not what I want. I think the operation here, let me go back, is like a masking operation. So essentially one shape is masking the other one. So I can go to modify, and there is a mask operation here. And I think that one works, because, and let me change the stroke to blue. So yeah, that's like one option. Like if I mask it, I get that single stroke. I can place it again where it belongs. Or if I kind of change the order of the masking, if I change the order of the star and the circle, then I can get that. So it's doable. I don't love it because then we have two operations. We have the union, we have the mask, and then it's a little difficult to move things around. Like let's say if I wanted to move the circle and then like retain all the lines, it doesn't quite work that way. With Weld and Score on the other side, you get, let me redo it again. What you get is this like option to have this sort of live modifier. That's what we call them, which is when the Weld and Score is applied, then you can actually go in and move things around, and then the effect is retained. So anyway, that's the basic convenience. It's like you get the whole package in kind of like one quick operation. The other thing I want to mention is that, of course, because we have two shapes, we have two options. We have this option where like the star here in the outline is on top. But if I change the order here, I'm just going to drag it and change the order so the circle is on top. You'll see that it changes. Now the circle is on top, and then I get the opposite, or kind of like a slightly different look. So they look the same from the back. They're welded, but then they look different from the front. We get the star being outlined or the circle being outlined. So that's kind of like the general application of these for shapes. Text is the next kind of frontier. So Cuttle has this built-in type of text called connected text. I'm going to search for connected here. There we go. And this one, the very kind of basic version, by default uses a script font. And a script font is sort of meant to simulate how you would do like sort of cursive handwriting. But the beauty of connected text is that it cuts in a single piece like these, and everything gets connected, including the dots on the eyes. So for example, if I were to put my name here, you can see how the dot on the eye gets connected to the eye kind of nicely. But so connected text has a couple of options. So whenever you have connected text selected, there is an option here that says weld everything, which is the default. And so that welds, essentially kind of smooshes up all the letters and it welds them. But then there's an option that says weld nothing. So if we select that one, you can see how now all the letters are separate and we can see the places where they overlap. So if we were to apply the Weld and Score, if we were to cut these as is, all the letters would kind of fall out. But if we apply the Weld and Score to this one, Weld and Score, what we get is this effect where like each letter, as it connects to the next one, it gets kind of highlighted. So let me show you the comparison. So this is no Weld and Score, just the default, all welded. And this is with the Weld and Score. So these doesn't, it looks neat, but it's probably not strictly necessary with script fonts, meaning the ones that are kind of trying to simulate handwriting. So for example, if we go here to the fonts, you see that there is like a handwriting section, and all of these are like sort of like cursive, handwritten kind of stuff. But if you start looking for different fonts, some of them really benefit from the Weld and Score. So for example, we have this one called, I'm going to show you a couple that are kind of heavily used on some of our templates. So for example, this one is called Inter. Let's do the chunkier version. They're like 800 weight. And I'm just gonna type the name of the font here. So as this one gets kind of, let's get rid of the Weld and Score. As this one gets kind of smushed and welded as a default, like these, it kind of loses readability. It's kind of like hard to parse, what's going on. Like it still cuts in a single piece, but then, you know, in this case, the I and the N are just like smushed together and they kind of make no sense. So like when we apply the weld and score to this one, let's go weld and score down here. Oh, good point. I kind of ran into my own. Notice that I applied the weld and score, but nothing happened. It's because I left the connected text as a default, weld everything over here. You have to select weld nothing for the weld and score to have an effect. That's something you might run into. So yeah, we definitely gain a lot of readability, and it, I think it looks a little cooler. It looks a little more interesting. So that's one I wanted to kind of display. The next one that we tend to use a lot on the templates, or like Toby likes to use a lot. Let's just create a. I'm going to create a duplicate here. So you know, I mean, you already know that. So this is connected text, and I apply the weld and score. I'm just going to go ahead and change the font. I'm going to look for this one called Atma. Oop, no, that's not the one I want to change. Let's keep it in order. There is this other one called Atma, which is pretty neat. I guess we can compare whether oh yeah, a lot of operations. I have to like weld everything. Kind of confusing myself here. So to show you, okay, so if I weld everything, like in this case, once again, I don't get the readability I'm looking for. Let's select the Atma font. And we tend to use the 600. Yeah, there we go. So this is like a very playful font. I think it looks kind of fun. And that's what it looks like. I think this one is more, you know, it's easier to read as cis. But as we apply the weld and score, I think we can get a nicer. So I need to apply the weld and score and select weld nothing. There we go. And here's the comparison. It looks playful. You know, the letters are kind of touching each other, and then it's kind of fun to read. The last one I wanted to show you before I move on to the other projects was a slightly more serious font. Let's do it from scratch. So I'm gonna grab this one. I'm gonna change the font. It's called Literata, and we tend to use the 700 there just to make it like chunkier. Let's write the name. So I guess this is what type of font is? Yeah, it's a serif font, which means the characters have kind of little, what do you call these, little decorations, little tails, and this one also, I think let's see the comparison after I apply the weld and score, just to. I suppose I could always like duplicate these and have the other one next to it, so I can compare it on screen. Apply weld and score once again. And this is funny. I have to remember every time if I apply the weld and score, I need to select weld nothing. So the weld and score starts with a set of separate shapes. It's funny. It's like I know what I'm. I think I know what I'm doing, but like I need to remind myself. So here we go. Here's the comparison. I think it's good. I think it looks pretty nice. I recommend this one. I think when you're choosing fonts for laser cutting, I think one consideration is that like they need to be a little chunky, so like you end up with like something that is kind of solid enough to stand, a little bit of abuse. And of course, I guess I could mention that the connected text comes with an option. Like if your letters are not chunky enough, you can always like chunkify them. I just made that up. We call it thicken. There's an option here to thicken it up. So you can thicken it up like kind of if the font is too flimsy, you can like add some thickness, and then that should improve your cutting experience. So yeah, I think that's the basic rundown on using Weld and Score with letters. So I think there are like essentially two scenarios that I'm talking about. One is you gain something with the shapes when you're using shapes with Weld and Score, but then with letters, what you gain is, it's cuttable in a single piece, and you gain readability. I'll. Someone in the chat says, identify as chunkified from now on. Nice. Yeah, chunkified. Maybe we'll change the name of that. No, thicken is good enough. Let's move on to trying this frame. Well, I guess I answered this question first. Like, how the question was, someone was using this connected text, and then they wanted to get the little lines. So that's how you do it. You choose the connected text, you select weld nothing, and then you apply the weld and score modifier. So let's create another project here. So now I want to move on to this one. So we can like see how to make a functional project. So here's the idea. We need a frame. I'm just going to choose some kind of arbitrary numbers. So I'm going to start with, that's where the picture is going to go. And let's call that one 2 inches by 3 inches. That's kind of like the inside frame. And then I'm going to grab another rectangle for the outside frame. And I'm going to call that one, 3 by 4. 3 inches by 4 inches. And then I think I want it. So looking at the inspiration here, I can see that it's like a little bit offset. Or is it? Maybe not. Well, I'm gonna offset it a little bit anyway. I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna change the position here. How much did I change it? Yeah, like I'm just gonna nudge it over here by 0.2, and over here by like 1/8 of an inch. Minus 0.125. So I kind of create a little space on the side for the letters to work. And then I'm not going to use connected text. Yeah, someone in the chat says top and bottom are offset. Cool. Top and bottom. I did the bottom. Okay. Yeah, no, I see more space here at the top. So now let's grab the text. So in this case, I'm not going to grab connected text. I'm just going to grab the regular text. And I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees. So I could do this a couple of ways. I could just rotate like this and hold shift to stick to like whole numbers. So that's 90 degrees. I could also do it over here with the rotation. And we're going to type baseball. I want to do uppercase base. And I think I want to change the font. I found one that looks kind of, it's called Anton. Yeah, it's chunky. I'm gonna place it like right in the middle here, and yeah. And that's basically almost there. The next thing I want to do is apply the weld and score. So I need to select only this rectangle and the font. So I'm going to hold shift. And then if I apply weld and score, I think that's the effect I wanted. If I look at the inspiration, I think they rounded the corners a little bit. So I think that's totally doable. One mistake I made while I was preparing was if I were to apply the rounded corners to these, it rounds all the corners, which doesn't look horrible. It looks kind of funny and weird, but that's not what we wanted. So we have to be careful about what we apply the round corners to. I suppose if I backtrack a little bit, let me undo these. The idea is that the rectangle itself, only the rectangle should have the round corners applied to it. Let's do like something subtle like these. 0.1, and then I can apply the Weld and Score. So I can go Weld and Score, and so that should do the trick. So we get both the readability of the letters, and then we get the the ability to cut it in a single piece. I guess as a comparison, I could show you what happened. This is one of those cases where like without Weld and Score, then you're like stuck, because if I apply just a weld, and it's like a puzzle. You can't read what it says. So this is a Weld and Score case. We probably want to apply a little round corners to the inside one. 0.1. And in general, I like to have inside cuts and outside cuts, even though they're the same operation, as separate. I mean, the same type of operation. I like to have them as separate operations. So I'm going to select the color of the stroke for the rectangle as red. And notice how Weld and Score takes that red and then makes it into the outside cut. And so that is like the quick way of making this particular project. It's a Weld and Score. And I actually cut it just to have a sample here. And so, yeah, once again, we get a single piece. That's kind of very convenient. And then we have that as the frame. I suppose the one that we were looking at for inspiration has other details. I didn't cut a version of this one has like other details, like the baseballs scored or engraved perhaps in the background. And I think Weld and Score can take care of that as well. Like, for example, if I were to grab an emoji and then change it to a baseball. And then if I bring it inside of the group of the Weld and Score, so I'm looking here at the outline, and I can actually bring things inside of groups by just dragging them and putting them in. Then let's see what the effect is. Yeah, so that works. I mean, that part inside didn't work, but let's move it around. We can take advantage of that kind of live situation. I don't know. Here I'm just showing off that like you can like kind of put it outside of the frame, but if you don't put it outside of the frame, if it's just inside and a little smaller, then it immediately turns into just a score. So that's like a quick way to add the decoration. Somebody mentioned on the chat, Brian, saying that text along path also works. Let's try it. Time? Yeah, I have a little time. Text along path, something like these. Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Like it would work as the one you would put on the side. Okay. Yeah, I think I got it. The final thing I kind of wanted to show you is that now that you can identify, now that you get the idea behind Weld and Score, I think you'll now recognize it in all these different templates if you hadn't before. And so let's look at a couple of templates that are like very clearly using the Weld and Score modifier. So let me say, need to look at Cuttle templates. So like I think looking at things here, this one immediately jumps at me, the Easter egg tag. You can see how the S and the H are like separated, and we can like quickly inspect it in the Cuttle editor. I think this is the front layer, and yeah, there it is, Weld and Score in action. Then the other very clear one, actually, I really like the example of the house. What do you call it? The house, new house ornament. because I think here Weld and Score is doing a number of different jobs. Let's look at it. Let's look inside the front, and there you have it. Weld and Score is being used. I like this example because I think in this case, Weld and Score is doing a number of different things. So you can see, I think Weld and Score gives you a sort of multi-layer look in a single layer. I guess that's one description. So here what we get is like, we get the separation between the chimney and the roof. You know, the roof kind of looks like a single thing. And then we get this little like plaque at the bottom that almost looks like someone like cut a different piece and placed it there, but we get the plaque. This one is engraved. And then of course we get the fact that we can like read what the letters say very well. So it's a bit of a time saver, a material saver if you wish. And then you get to accomplish these kind of effects. And like if we inspect the way it's constructed here, the front has like, yeah, so you can see that it has like a, let me uncheck it. So you can see how it has the plaque as a separate element, then the roof as a separate element, and then we have the letters, the text as a separate element. The text fitting inside of this house outline. So it's kind of like a neat way to like sort of assemble, you get to sort of assemble different chunks, you know, different pieces, like something like this, like the house outline, and then the roof, and then the plaque. Oh, this one is just here. And then when you apply the Weld and Score to that, you immediately get this kind of neat look. Like here it added these two score lines. The last thing, perhaps the last exception in another one of the templates. So the Easter egg is the Easter bunny is an interesting example, because sometimes to create certain things, Weld and Score does the work, but sometimes you actually do have to figure things out. And this is like a sort of tiny detail. But you can see how in the Jessica bunny here, let's look at the front. Weld and Score applies for the flower and for the letters, but this particular line right here that kind of gives the impression of the fold for the ear, that one was done by hand, because you can see that this section is all connected. You know, the ear is all connected. So yeah, it's a tiny section, but like, you know, in this case, the design kind of adds to it. So I think that's all I have for you today. And that was like half an hour. So I hope this gets you using Weld and Score, and it gets you a better understanding on how it works and kind of like the different things you can do with text and shapes. So all right. So thank you so much for watching, and please, thank you for leaving so many comments and participating. And I will see you in the next one. All right. Bye.